Hey, fellow babies. Welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I hope you're watching real time as a Patreon patron. If you are, thank you very much for your support. Also, our YouTube subscribers are getting this real time, so if you're subscribing there, great. And if you are an Amazon Prime member, you can link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. There's instructions in the show description below. That will get us paid and cost you nothing. It's one of the perks that Amazon gives you for being a Prime member. So please try to check that out. If you haven't done it in a couple months, renew it, because we get paid every time you renew that and every time you watch. So would appreciate it. If you have no inclination to support Shane in producing this content, then you're getting this a week late or later, and it serves you right. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. Okay, let's get to today's question from YouTube, from Dan Fancy. There's a lot of controversy swirling around Hogwarts Legacy due to some negative comments IP owner J.K. Rowling made about trans people. This has caused some consumers to boycott the game because they don't want to give money to Rowling. Some journalists say they will not cover it. How much do boycotts like this generally affect sales? Its Metacritic average is pretty high. Ultimately, how do you think it does financially? Should journalists take things like this into consideration when planning coverage? Should it factor into reviews of the game? Look, I think that every human is entitled to, act in a consistent manner with their conscience. And so if you are offended by J.K. Rowling and you don't want to support her making money off of your hard-earned paycheck, then you should boycott her game. If you're not offended, then you shouldn't. And I can give you my own personal view. I think trans rights are human rights, and I think people who are anti-trans have every right to be, believe whatever they want to believe, but they shouldn't be vocal about it. So somebody who's vocally anti-human rights probably is going to draw a lot of attention, a lot of negative attention, and they're going to suffer. So I'm supportive of a boycott. I am friendly with the Warner Brothers Interactive guys. I love to see their games do well. I know this is a good game. And, obviously the game is an anti-trans. So if you're boycotting it, you're not boycotting it because you don't believe in the content. You're boycotting it because you don't believe in the owner. I'll give you a couple of examples of people who do objectionable things that don't get boycotted. Elon Musk on Twitter, he's an ass. But I haven't heard about an organized boycott of Tesla. It would be appropriate because he's a dick. But people aren't as outraged by him, telling you, that a guy who saves kids in a cave is a pedo. So whatever, people don't act out. So, you may completely endorse that. You may hate trans people, and that's your right. Again, I think that's despicable, but, if that's who you are, that's fine. But if you keep it to yourself, people aren't going to boycott you. And if you're vocal about it, they are. So the answer to the question on financially, that game typically will sell somewhere in the 8 million unit range. And, so we'll do about $400 million of wholesale revenue. I would guess, because it got higher average Metacritic scores than the normal Harry Potter game, this one has the potential to sell maybe 10. And that's over the course of about a year. And that 10 is probably going to suffer by about 10% because of the boycott. And the way I get to this math is, 50% of gamers don't even know that Harry Potter is a book series. And then of the ones who know that it's a book series, probably 50% of those don't know who the author is. So that gets you down to 25% of the people who might buy the game. And of that 25%, probably about half agree with her and are freaked out by trans people and aren't offended by what she said. So that leaves 10 or 12% of the people who are going to buy the game or would otherwise buy the game who are offended and are aware. And I don't know how many of those will act on their beliefs and not buy the game, but I say 10% max total impact on sales. And if it sells 7.2 million instead of 8, you won't know. If it sells 9 instead of 10, you won't know. So the answer is, game's going to do fine. Boycotts are healthy because they make the average person aware of the controversy, and then the average person can weigh in with their views, and if they agree, then great, and if they disagree, then then they've identified themselves as a racist, anti-human rights person. But whatever. I mean, I get it. I think that, like a lot of other things, I think people who don't understand trans or don't have any trans members of their family or trans friends, it freaks them out because it's something unfamiliar to them. And so I don't know what J.K. Rowling's problem is. She's not, uneducated, and she's not backward. I think she's just got these really odd views and has for some reason decided to be vocal. And interestingly, you can look this stuff up. Henry Ford, the founder of Ford, was a anti-Semite. Didn't come out, I don't think, until after he was dead. And so nobody boycotted Ford because of it. But had it been really widely publicized when Fords came out, people probably would have boycotted it. So again, it's your right to boycott any product where you don't agree with the politics of the owner of the brand. And again, there's reasons to boycott McDonald's because of how they process their beef or treat the cattle. I mean, there's reasons to boycott any product. You can come up with anything. A reason not to like them, like tobacco, because it hurts people. And a lot of people were boycotting corporations that were donating to politicians that they didn't like. And again, it's your right. So, I think that every choice that a brand makes, an owner of a brand makes, is going to impact somebody. It's going to make some people less likely and some people more likely to buy. I do have an interesting anecdote about Musk, because Musk urged people on Twitter to vote Republican in the congressional election, and then they just promptly proposed a bill to outlaw any tax credits for electric vehicles. So good for him. That was really smart of him. I think he is just a dumbass, and I'm shocked that he thinks anybody cares what he has to say. But Duncan Jones, who is David Bowie's son, posted something yesterday trying to explain why Elon Musk is getting fewer interactions with his tweets. And Duncan said, if someone had plastic surgery and had a dick sewn on his face, I would look. And then if the next day he had another dick sewn on his face, I probably would look. But he said after like the 5th or 10th dick sewn on his face, it stops being interesting. And that's how he described Elon Musk and his tweets and his engagement. So anyway, J.K. Rowling can have any view she wants, and if you don't agree with it, boycott her products. And if you do, then buy her products. So I think it's going to have a minor impact on the game, get a lot of press, highlight the fact that most consumers think that trans rights are human rights. And I think it's probably a good thing that it's highlighting the issue and making us talk about it. So, on the journalism side, I actually think journalists have a job to do, which is to report the news. And so I think that it's important for them to cover this. Journalists who say, I'm not going to even review the game because I don't agree with her views, I think that's short-sighted. They get paid to review games, and I think they should review the game. And if they want to give it a 50 and say it sucks because we hate J.K. Rowling and tell you that's why they did it, that's fine. But not reviewing it at all, I think, is abdicating their responsibility. I think that they can certainly let her political views influence their review as long as they tell you that they're doing that. But I think it's their job. It's sort of like, saying, would I not cover the earnings of a company? I cover like Activision when they had the sexual, harassment, sexual discrimination issues. No, I reported on them and I still covered their earnings, and I said, here's how I think it impacts their earnings going forward and their ability to hire, and that's what a journalist's job is. So, no, I think they should have covered it. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor this week. If you are a Patreon patron, we very, very much appreciate it. If you are a YouTube subscriber, thank you. If you are neither, but you have remembered to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account, we're getting paid, so thank you. And if you're none of those things, then at a minimum, follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. See you next time.